Think again. Join us to uncover why a freeze dryer might be the ultimate game changer for your homestead needs.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Farm to Table Direct Show. Thanks for tuning in and joining us for another fun-filled, information-packed show. As always, please join us in the live chat where you can leave comments and questions, as well as participate with each other throughout the time we're together. Tonight, we welcome in Jack and Deanna Dyer with Dyer Family Farm from Marlow, Oklahoma. Jack is one of the speakers and demonstrators at the Oklahoma Homestead Rendezvous. Jack and Deanna, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having us.
You guys have a pretty busy day today.
Yeah, to say the least. Say the least. We're working the full-time job today.
Uh-oh. So is homesteading, is it kind of like a side hustle for you guys? Are you guys full-time into any particular endeavor, or do you have a job somewhere on the outside?
Homesteading is a way of life for us.
Right, yeah.
We have a 40-hour-a-week job, too, on top of that.
Wow.
We both work for Stevens County.
Oh, okay. So that'll keep you busy right there, especially during this time of year.
Yes, sir.
Right. So as you guys know, tonight we're going to be talking about freeze dryers and freeze drying, which Jack and Deanna has got a little bit of experience with it, we might say. And I know that you guys set up at expos and that sort of thing. And we're just going to kind of get in and kind of ask a few questions about the freeze drying process. And before we get into that, can you tell us a little bit of your background and how you started doing freeze drying?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, we bought our first freeze dryer just because we have the farm and we had an abundance of vegetables and all. And I went to work, which the county commissioner is my boss, and he said, "You've got a freeze dryer." He said, "You need to try this candy." He'd been to a Thunder game and they had bought freeze-dried candy at the Thunder game. And so he brought me an empty bag. He didn't even save me one piece of candy. But he said, "This is what it looks like. The bag looks like." He said, you need to try this." And so we did, and it just went crazy from there.
Well, sometimes the best things happen by accident, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, the original purpose of freeze drying was to put up our own food. Basically, I wouldn't consider us preppers, but we are definitely not going to go hungry anytime soon.
No.
And we have a greenhouse and high tunnels, and we have a full-blown farm that a freeze dryer is very beneficial for.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So we're going to get into later, some of the things that you can use in a freeze dryer. But I've got one that's right on top of my head because it's a love of my life, and that is coffee. Can you freeze dry coffee?
Yes,
You
I
can.
have done
Yes.
coffee, and I'll give you. I wouldn't do it again.
No.
Really?
Well, if you want freeze-dried coffee, just go buy Folgers.
Well, right. And that's what I was thinking because, I'm a coffee roaster. So I didn't know if you could do that or not. And I always wondered, how do they get those crystals like that? And so we were talking a little bit earlier and Ryan said something about it. And I said, I didn't even think about that.
So, yes, it will freeze dry the coffee. I made a whole pot of coffee. My favorite is Dunkin' Donuts, but we also roast our own green coffee beans. And
oh, good.
And we haven't in a while, but we've got plenty we could do now. But I poured that whole cup of coffee into the freeze dryer and freeze dried it. It took 30, 40 hours, something like that. And then when I got it out, it made about 2 cups of coffee. So it was really good coffee. It was good coffee, but I turned the pot into 2 cups.
Oh my! And that was a 10 cup.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. I got you. And then I had another question that was brought up, and I know this, this is off script a little bit, but MREs, we just
Right.
wondered if y'all wanted to start doing this because of, I know that you are in the service, and I imagine you've had your share of MREs.
That's mine and your share, and yeah,
Yeah.
I had, we lived on them, absolutely lived on them. But
Right.
yeah,
Yeah.
MREs, mountain house meals, things like that. That's all possible. Depends on the food you're trying to do and the fat contents and oil contents. That's what it boils down to. But you
Right.
can create your own MREs that'll be shelf stable for 25 years if you package it
Wow.
right.
I was when Keith brought that up, I was sharing with him earlier. Mine, of course, I spent a lot of years in the service, and like you said, more than our fair share of them things. I won't even hardly look at one. But anyway, and you may remember this: the freeze dried fruit packages, right? They had a little,
Yes.
and it was a little hard cake, and I used to take and break the pieces off of it and just eat it that way, or
Yep.
follow it with water, and it would come alive in my mouth, and that's my memory of freeze dried food.
So yeah, the strawberries was, that was bargaining chips. I mean, you could
Oh yeah.
let the trade.
They're delicious.
Yeah,
Yeah, everybody wanted the strawberries. That was it. But
that was the best of the fruit.
there you go. We've got quite a few joined in on the chat already. Rainy Ridge, Heartland HQ with Dink and Tank, and
Chris Thompson.
Chris Thompson, and yeah. So hey, welcome
Yeah,
in, guys.
Dink and Tank.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, for those people that are watching out there, kind of explain what what freeze drying is and kind of how it works.
So freeze drying is exactly what it sounds like. We freeze. So Whole Foods, I'm going to say, let's just take pickles. That's one of our favorite snacks. People love our pickles. Probably our best selling whole food, real food that's not a candy. It'll freeze the pickle.
It's the chip,
Yeah, it's just a dill pickle,
not a
sandwich pickle,
not a spear.
like a hamburger pickle from Walmart.
Right.
So it freezes that down to about -20. Thicker, denser foods, it'll freeze down to -40. Then it pulls a really strong vacuum. So ambient pressure is around 2,500 on a vacuum scale of MTs. This is going to pull it down to under 500.
Oh, wow.
So it's a really strong vacuum. Once it gets down to that vacuum pressure, negative pressure, whatever you want to call it, it starts warming that extra cold food up. And as it warms it up, not cooking, it's not a cooking temperature, it just warms it up enough that the water will release as a gas and then is drawn out of the chamber and giving you 95 to 98% dry food at that
So
point.
almost completely dehydrated, basically.
Yeah, well, when you compare it to a dehydrator that gives you 70 to 80% water removal, yeah. So that's why you get such long shelf stable times. Is there's nothing to cause any mildew or decay.
But if there is moisture, it will decay.
Yeah, if you don't get it completely dry, it's not going to be shelf stable.
Right. Now, is this what you're going to be telling to people, more of the how that works at the rendezvous?
I will go through that. Yeah.
Yeah.
How the process
I mean,
works. Different kinds of foods and times and things like that. It's like we were talking earlier before the show. I can put candy in there, Skittles. That's our best seller. And excuse me, the Skittles, I only have to freeze them to about 0, and you don't have to get them that cold. And they'll come out in 2 hours. I'm done with a batch of Skittles. Those pickles we were just talking about, that's a 40-hour process.
Wow.
Just because of the difference in fiber in the foods versus just a sugar snack candy.
Right.
There's just no
So,
real.
so what are some of the perfect types of foods that that's good for freeze drying? And of course, are there other foods that really is not good for freeze drying? Are there things that you would just stay away from?
Yes.
You can't do butter. Anything that has a lot of oil content. Chocolate does not freeze dry, not by itself. Now you can do some candies that have some chocolate in them.
Thin layers.
Mhm.
For instance, the what is that sugar free? Russell Stover's
Russell
sugar free, but it's like it has caramel covered with chocolate. The caramel will it'll process, but the chocolate really does not. It just kind of sticks to and comes off. So you lose some, but some stays. So you may not get it all. What else?
The main thing that you look for and to decide whether or not a food or a candy can be freeze dried is it water based or is it an oil fat based? You can do fatty meats and things like that. You just have to trim them down.
I see. So
Stuff will not.
Cody, you can freeze dry drinks.
Yes, Cody.
Yes.
I freeze dried some water the other day. You couldn't even see it.
oh,
No, but yes, you can.
that's a funny question. But
We were just talking about the coffee, Cody, and that's a type of drink. You end up if you do it with a powder because drinks is sugar based. I mean, I'm assuming you're talking like a soda. I haven't thought about doing a beer, but yeah, you could add it back.
Reconstituted beer. That's interesting.
I don't know.
But I wanted to go back to Chris Thompson because Chris Thompson had asked, have you tried Big Hunk candy bars?
No.
The Big Hunk we've been asked to do, and I do believe the Big Hunk works. But when we got into it on the candy side, after we started doing the candy, we got such a wide variety of products that we finally had to say, okay, no more new ones.
Mhm.
Let's deal with what we have.
You have to master what's in the process.
Yeah. So
Right. So do you ever go through I'm sorry.
go ahead.
Go ahead.
Well,
I was just going to ask that, do you guys go through like a weeding out process? In other words, you've got your bread and butter, if you will, the ones that really, pay. Do you like try some other things to replace the weaker ones and that sort of thing in your business model?
One of my favorite candies that we started out doing, and they did really well. Now we have 2 freeze dryers now because we learned real quick. The first one was a medium, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And then so it didn't take us long to pay it off. I mean, not that it was financed, but the business paid for it very quickly. And then we upgraded to a larger one. But the times, there's a difference in them, and you have to master your machine because what you might do time wise in your smaller machine might be perfect and your larger machine might not be so well. You might need to go a little bit longer, maybe a little bit higher temperature. But what I was saying is Nerd Clusters was one of my favorite. In the small machine, they would do perfect and they would turn out wonderful. And I don't know this, but I think that the candy company has changed their formula because I can't get them to do anymore. So I have told my customers, I'm sorry, I won't do them anymore.
Wow.
Even though they're one of my favorites, I just don't do them.
Well, that kind of answered Rainy Ridge's question if there was any kind of candy you can't do. So I guess chocolate and
yeah. Yeah, and I don't myself. I don't like doing gummy worms or gummy bears. Peach rings are fabulous, but
And there's nothing wrong with doing the gummy bears and gummy worms. They just get so big that when we package them, we don't feel like we're offering our customers a fair value because you can't put that many in a package. But I want to go back just a little bit and answer a little bit more Keith's question.
Okay.
The candies that we decided to use, we didn't invent the wheel. So, I mean, we've tried to master the wheel, but we didn't invent the wheel. And what I mean by that is we use the resources that are available to us, the Facebook groups out there. We stick to it. Once we fine tune a candy, we have a recipe, and that's what's used.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't call it a SOP, but that's our SOP, standard operating procedure from that point forward, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, it does. Don't reinvent the wheel. No need. Just follow what works, right? You know, it's like sell what sells, make what you can make, and what other people have had success in doing.
Freeze-dried candy makers is a great resource. That's one of our biggest resources when we got started.
And there's an
Right.
ebook that we purchased, and they have a lot of resources in the ebook. You have to purchase it, of course, you know, but once you purchase it, you download, print it. I mean, it's wonderful, and it's very inexpensive. I think it's
Now,
$5.
in that ebook, it's going to tell you like processes.
It
Yes.
does, and it
I see.
does it for specific brands of candy. It tells you the temperatures, the time, you know. But like I said, with your machine, there may be variations with the size of your machine.
Right.
But
Well, now, when you said that about the machine, Dina, have you guys caught up now with the new larger machine and changed your operating procedure there
Yes.
already? Okay,
Yeah,
and now
we-
you're comfortable with that.
Well, jump in the chat right quick.
Sure.
Ian D Livestock said, "Hey Dina, hey Jack, Keith, Ryan. Good to see y'all guys on here, man. Hope everything is going well up there in y'all's neck of the woods with the tornadoes and stuff up there y'all had as well. And hope y'all are feeling better as well." And Dink and Tank said, "Raspberries and blueberries, yum." So
yes,
Real food is
delicious.
it's delicious. Yeah, I'm going to talk, probably lean a little more toward real food in the conversation or in the presentations when I'm at the rendezvous, Oklahoma Homestead Rendezvous.
right.
Reason being is because that's going to lean more toward homesteading and and prepping. There's an element of prepping to that, but
Right.
Sure. You know, and what I might point out, since you brought that up, is that it seems to me that there's kind of two sides to this. And one of them is like when you want to make a business, you would go into the candy side of it and to the sweets and the types of things that's sellable like that. But if you're talking about homesteading and stocking and storing food, then, you know, you might gear, you know, part of it, because but what the point that I wanted to make is that I think both of those things are relevant for you know, for the rendezvous, and I'll tell you why. Because there's a lot of people out there that have homestead channels, right?
yes.
And they're listening to this stuff, and and I had one guy that chimed in and said, who don't want a freeze dryer? You know, it was the better question, right? And so a lot of people are thinking about getting into it, but they may be getting into it for financial reasons, or they may be getting into it for, you know, just for prepping and food storage and that sort of thing. And both of those are extremely valid in the homesteading community. And that's really what I think anyway. What do you think about that?
Keith, I agree. I hear a lot of people say, I really want a freeze dryer, but I can't afford it. It's too expensive. And we thought the same way. And this was before we ever even dreamed of having a business around the freeze dryer. But what I'm going to tell you is, if you're willing to put a little money up front, and I'm not going to talk dollars, you guys probably seen how expensive the freeze dryers are.
Mm-hmm.
We've got 2 freeze dryers. We have stainless steel. We have an LLC. We got the license from the state. We have a trailer with logos that pulls our equipment and our displays and everything around that. we were able to pay for within a couple of months in a freeze-dried candy business. So
Well-
really, if you want a freeze dryer and you're willing to put a little work in it, that's the way I'd recommend going.
So, if somebody did decide to do that and they got into it, and I'm just going to ask, do they have financing options for those for people who don't have the cash to just do it? I mean, I know that your advice and my advice to anybody out there would be, man, if you can just pay cash for it, you're so much better off. But, you know, there are people out there who think,
I think they do. I don't think we got Harvest Right. There's other brands out there. I would
Right.
support Harvest Right. I think it's the best one out there. I would also tell people to deal directly with Harvest Right.
Mhm.
They do have a layaway. I don't know about a payment plan. And the reason I say deal directly with Harvest Right, I have an affiliate link. They can come and go directly to Harvest Right through us.
right,
I don't care if they don't but the bigger
Right.
reason is the service through Harvest Right is better than going to your big box store and buying the same freeze dryer for the same money.
I see.
The price is set by Harvest Right, so you're not going to get a different deal at Harvest Right than you will at the big box.
No,
It's
and
going to be the same price.
they have sales on them. I mean, throughout the year, they throw sales on them.
The
So
other
waiting
thing
for a
I
sell.
say, go ahead. I'm sorry.
So you're saying waiting for a sell is probably a good idea.
Yeah,
And just know that they do.
they do throw
Yes,
sales.
they do.
And they offer incentives too, because we had after we had bought ours, and I don't know that they still do this, but at the time they did offer an incentive if we would go and leave a what do you call that? A review.
Reviews.
Review. We had to leave 5 reviews and send them the
Proof.
verification of the review, and then they gave us credit. And with that credit, then we went and bought additional supplies that went with the machine, like an extra set of trays. Because when you have an extra set of trays, you can speed the process up. If, say, we're doing pickles or coffee or whatever, eggs, anything that needed to be froze, anything but
It's
candy.
a good tip.
Because candy does not have to freeze. But so, like, your real food needs to freeze before it goes through the freeze drying process. So if you have an extra set of trays, you can fill those trays, put them in your deep freezer, and let them freeze for a couple of days. Then get your freeze dryer going, put them in there, and it saves your freeze dryer from having to take it to freezing.
Okay.
So it saves you time.
Hey, there's a tip. Shannon Vickers chimed in on Facebook, said would be interested in the homesteading aspect and what size would be best just for home use, not business.
I would always recommend to get the biggest one you can afford.
Absolutely.
The medium is a great size, and that's the one you see out a lot in the big box stores. What you're going to run into is if you're doing a large batch of, say, garden vegetables, it's going to be the time aspect. It's not like canning where you can go back to back to back because you're going to have 40 hours, not a couple hours on the stove.
Right.
Now, the long-term benefit outweighs that short cycle of canning, 2 or 3 years on the shelf versus 25 years on the shelf. But yeah, always get the largest one you can afford.
Yeah,
once
I
you-
think that's really good advice.
Mm-hmm. And once you do that, though, like say you're doing tomatoes, say you do sliced green tomatoes, because say you want to do fried green tomatoes when you reconstitute them. So you could do fried green tomatoes in the wintertime.
Right.
But like if you did red tomatoes, then you get them dried. You could make tomato powder to add to soup, or I mean, it's the possibilities are endless.
Okay. Yeah. Rainy Ridge, they'd ask if when you do meat or if you do your meat, does it come out like jerky?
It does not, Tina and Eric. That's Rainy Ridge's name, Tina and Eric. Imagine that's Tina. She's usually the question asker. It does not. It comes out brittle. It'll crumble instead of tear like a jerky because there's no water left to hold the fibers together.
Okay. But awesome. I know E&D just said he said they just had $500 off. They keep going back and forth talking about harvest right.
Yes.
They do that a lot.
Yeah. And Leah Chriswell over there, Homestead in a Box with Leah, just said, just did 5 dozen eggs. Medium is great for backyard homestead. And said, keep in mind the big ones have to have special wiring. So,
Yeah.
Well,
There's that.
we don't have the extra large. We've got the large and can still be ran on 110 circuit. You
Okay.
can get
Oh, okay.
220, but we're on 110 circuit. No special wiring needed.
But each
For
one
the
of
large.
ours has their own. Each one of ours is on its own.
I did put its own breaker on. There's nothing
Right.
else on it. So
Right. And with that,
I would recommend that with any freeze dryer. You don't want any other electrical draw on that same circuit.
so, and for those of us who always ask that question to ourselves about if it should be on its own breaker, is it a 15 amp, 20 amp breaker? What do you recommend on that, just for those who might want to know?
I got them on 20s.
You got them on 20s.
I
Okay.
got them on 20s,
All right.
and that's recommended.
I see. Okay. All right. And so whenever, how can you, earlier you said something about the storage of it
Yes.
and how long that they would last. And you gave 2 pretty widespread time frames. Like you said, one was 25 years and another one was a much shorter period. Can
Yes.
you kind of talk to that just a little bit?
So it's all around the water. It's all around the water and the packaging. You get all the water out on a freeze dried and package it correctly. And what I mean by that is a good heavy Mylar bag. Does not have to be vacuum sealed. A lot of people prefer to vacuum seal it, but a Mylar bag with an oxygen absorber, a fresh oxygen absorber. And then you got 25 years shelf stable and beyond. I know I've eaten some 5-year-old canned foods but most of the time when you're talking about canning, you're looking at a 3-year window.
Mm-hmm.
So they recommend, but
Right. So that brings up another question. How long have you gone, or how old have you actually tasted reconstituted freeze-dried food?
just a couple of years on ours because we hadn't been in it that long. But on them MREs we were talking about earlier,
There you go.
I seen some dates 5 to 7 years on those.
Okay.
Same stuff. It's just commercial freeze dryer. You know, the public freeze dryers wasn't available back then.
Right.
Excuse me.
So we're going to bring Rainy Ridge back up. I think he's had a question here.
Yeah, she had a question about making soup with it.
It's a great thing
Yes.
to do with it.
Yes.
A lot of people, soup's an easy reconstitution too. A lot of people, that's another question that a lot of people ask is, how do you know how much water to add back? Like MREs, they didn't give us a specific amount of water. You just did it till you knew you liked it. And
Right.
we can talk that all day long. I'm sure
Oh, yeah.
we got some stories about it too.
Oh, yeah.
But the best way to know how to reconstitute your food is to weigh it before, put it in your tray ready to go in the freeze dryer and weigh that. And know how many servings is on that tray.
Mhm.
Then when it's freeze dried and you're ready to package, you weigh it again and you deduct that from the original weight. That's your water weight that's missing.
Mhm.
Divide that water weight by the number of servings, and that's how much water you would add back to each serving.
And it's probably good to label each one of those so that whenever you
Yes.
pull it back off of the shelf or wherever it's stored from, which we're going to get into in a minute, but then that way when you pull it off, you can just reconstitute it as it was originally supposed to be.
Yes.
So that's a really good tip. And Chris, real quick, she was asking what type of wattage does it pull? And I know the reason that she asked, because they are
Completely off.
they're off grid completely.
They are totally
They're running
off.
solar, right? And so So I'm sure that they're majorly concerned with, something like that for those who are on solar. I don't know if you've researched any of that,
I
but
have,
go ahead.
I don't have it on the top of my head, the wattage. Do you remember?
I've heard that they don't pull more than like a dehydrator.
It'll surprise you how little they do pull. And Chris Dodge, I know y'all are in here, or at least Chris is for sure.
Mm-hmm.
There's other homesteaders out there. Lumna Acres is one of them. They're using solar array and using their freeze dryer as well. So it is possible. Off the top of my head, I do not know that wattage. We did all that research when we had to find out, I wanted to know if there was any profit in the candy and how much electricity we was burning. We figured the wattage, we figured the time in, we figured packaging and ink to print the labels and everything but our physical time we figured in there so that we would know whether or not it was really a viable business worth chasing.
Right.
And when we set a dollar amount, probably not the best way, but we set a dollar amount that we thought at our very first event, if we hit this, then it's going to be okay. Then we can make this a business, and we tripled it. So
No, wow.
It's really low cost on the front end, lower than you might think, even on a 40-hour batch of what it's drawing and how much, I know she's not worried about cost because she's off grid. She's worried about the actual wattage draw, but
Right.
it's lower than you think. And Chris, I'll try to get you, I got her contact information. I'll try to get you a better answer than that when we're not on here live.
Right. That'd be good to have with for the.
Yeah. Make a note to reach out to Chris and get her that information.
She said her dehydrator pulls 660. So.
Right. And 660 is not terrible. I've got a coffee machine that runs 1800 and we run it on a 15 amp breaker. Okay. So, anyway, let's see. Cost is always a concern. I understand that, Chris. It is with all of us, and there, it doesn't matter if you got $1 million sitting in the bank or $10 sitting in the bank. You
true.
always have to ask good questions, right, about that, because you don't need to just throw your money away.
Right.
So, we're going to have to move on a little bit. We're already into this thing 38 minutes. So,
that question right quick is as far as just common mistakes that beginners should avoid when they're starting up with this.
The biggest mistake I would say is
not letting it go long enough, taking it out before it's completely done,
taking it out, rushing it, overloading it, putting too much in there, things like that, and not doing enough research about the food first, what it's made of, because that's the key. You don't want to waste 40 hours in a machine and find out then you can't use it. Let somebody else that's already made that mistake tell you.
And that's why you were saying don't reinvent the wheel. You
Exactly.
purchased a guidebook, if you will.
Yes.
And have you come across anything that the guidebook itself does not cover?
Well, that guidebook covers candy only.
Oh, I see. Only
food,
candy.
Just candy.
I got you.
Because it was actually made, because he actually had two books, one on how to do candy and the other one was how to sell it, which I've never read the how to sell it.
I don't have any problem selling.
It sold itself, honestly. But
I tell you the secret to selling. This is my own formula. Don't let anybody walk by your booth without at least greeting them and talking to them and give out samples. We will outsell a booth right beside us with the exact same product if they do not do those two things.
Yeah, that's a very good tip, and I appreciate you sharing that, because like I said, there's a lot of people that's probably in this audience that's either here with us now or maybe at some point in the future. They've got a homestead and they're really interested in, making profit off of their homestead, because we all know that homesteading a farm, ranch, or whatever you happen to have, it ain't cheap.
No.
Well, let me add this. The candy business, if you're going to make it a viable business, is a very busy business. We have a nursery plant business as well. We have high tunnels, greenhouses. All of that got no attention for the first year because we were so busy with the candy business. So if it's a side hustle, whatever you want to call it, be prepared for that. It will eliminate your other side hustles. Back to something else I wanted to mention. If your homestead, you want to make some money for homestead, the freeze dryers are expensive. You don't want to be in the candy business, which is the better money side of the business. The food's good money too, but the production is way more time consuming. Freeze drying for other people. Offering your machine up as use is also a good way to pay for your machine and to bring in a little extra money for the homestead.
And I suppose at the Homestead Rendezvous, you're going to get into more details like that about how you can actually operate that way, to where I guess it would be almost like renting your machine out. I wouldn't say that you're renting it out, but maybe you're taking on a project for other people that ask you.
Yes.
And you'll get into more details about how to actually better operate that type of income.
I think yes, we will cover that. I will. Sorry, my coffee pot's making a little noise right now.
Can y'all hear that making a lot of noise?
No, but if I hear it, it's like a cattle call to me.
It's a commercial done coffee maker. That's how serious I am about coffee.
It gets loud.
Yeah, if y'all got to go, if one of y'all got to go take care of that, go right ahead. We'll push on. So go ahead and put E&D Livestock's question up there, Mr. P. Thank you very much.
Yeah, so is there certain certifications you have to have from the health department to sell the freeze-dried candy?
From the state.
Yes, you need to check with your state and your health department, because the state, well, there's, depending on what state you're in, there's criteria.
It's a food handlers in Oklahoma. You have to have a food handler certification.
Okay.
And it's not expensive to get. It is what, 8 hours? Was it 2 days? I can't remember.
It was 1 or 2 days.
I had to go do a course and you got certified. It's just it's for cottage law side of it. It's not the big. We can't ship it all over the country.
Not commercial license. This is cottage law. It's completely different.
Okay.
So and there's a cap on the amount of income you can make in cottage law,
which is not terrible.
No,
I mean, it's a pretty high limit that they have.
It's 75 grand in Oklahoma.
Right.
And we can make that in candy easy enough.
Right. On a different topic at a different time. On a different topic on a different time, I'd like to talk to you guys about, we're producing coffee. We have we got a coffee roaster. I roast coffee, but I'm not legal to do it and change it on site. But we have a roaster out of California that roasts our coffee for us and sends it to us. But that cottage industry, you guys had to go an additional step than some other people have to go. You had to go to this class, and I may have to do the same thing. And that's what I was talking about. But anyway, let's roll back into this, because we've got some other questions. What are some of the benefits of freeze drying that you'll be highlighting at the event? The benefits, and what we want to talk about is not the how, but why would somebody want to?
The biggest benefit is I'm going to try to do a comparison between, let's say, canning versus fermentation versus dehydration. All of these are methods of preserving food, right? And the freeze dryer. The biggest thing is going to be the shelf life. The second biggest thing is now I like fermented foods. I love fermented foods, and we do that too, not for sale. But the flavor difference when you dehydrate something or you can something, it's actually cooking it a little bit, depending on your method. Some water bathing, not so much, but you know what I'm saying? You're cooking it. You never bring a freeze-dried food to a cooking temperature. You do warm it to get the water to come out, but you never. So by not doing that at a cooking temperature, you don't lose flavor. You don't lose your minerals and your vitamins. All of those things will stay in your food.
Nutritional value.
Nutritional value. That's what I was searching for. Up to and over 90% of that will stay in.
That's
your
amazing.
food.
Yeah, and that's a big deal in the homesteading community. I mean, we hear it all the time about, how you let your food be your medicine, right?
Right.
Yes.
And the better we eat, and especially if we're doing it on a local basis, we know the farmer, we know the supplier, producer, then we know what's in it, or what's not in it may be more important.
Right.
It's not cooked out. The nutrients aren't cooked out of it.
We're not herbalist or anything, but that is also another thing. All your natural medicines, like you mentioned, can all be freeze dried and stored a lot longer than just air dried.
Oh, wow.
Which is a common way, is just air drying.
We did herbs. Actually, we have a video on that on his YouTube channel because he went to the grocery store one day and they had cilantro on sale. He said, "What do you have in the freeze dryer today?" And I said, "Why?" He said, "Well, they have cilantro." It was, I don't know, I think
It's like 15 cents a pound or something. It was
spent like
super cheap.
$2 or $3 on like 17 bundles of cilantro. I said, "Get every one of them." And we still have cilantro.
Yeah,
So,
that's
the
amazing.
deal. When you get a bumper crop come in, you can put it up for long term and focus on growing something else the next year. We grew garlic 3 years ago and we still don't need garlic.
It's fabulous.
Because we freeze dried. We did put some up in the freezer to use immediately, but that's another way you could do a rotational grow that way on the homestead. And really hit something heavy one year. The next year you won't have to grow that. Maybe even 2 or 3 years you won't have to, because you grew such a good supply the first time.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
So that's an actual economic savings, even at that, just for the simple fact you're not having to keep growing the same thing over and over again every year. I mean,
and you don't have to freeze it to keep it.
There you go.
So you're saving. You mentioned, you alluded to it a little bit ago, Keith, how we store it. Just on a shelf. It doesn't have to be out of direct sunlight. It doesn't hurt to be out of direct sunlight.
Right.
If that makes sense. You do not have to have it in a dark area. Canning's going to keep better in a darker room. Right. The Mylar bags does not let sunlight through, so it does not affect it.
That's a really big up point about freeze drying. You almost sold me just on that alone. But I'm going to tell you something else that somebody said to me here a couple of years back. Well, with the rise in food prices, you go out today and you either raise it or you buy it off of the shelf. You come home, you freeze dry it, and 3 years later, the prices are through the roof on that very same item. Isn't it the same thing as putting your money in a very good savings account?
Yes.
Because you're going to get a return on your investment simply by freeze drying that over long periods of time, reconstituted it when the prices are more stupid than they are right now.
Who was it that mentioned they freeze dried eggs a while ago? Somebody earlier.
Leah.
Let's just take that eggs. Eggs 2 years ago, eggs post that disease thing that we had problem with in 2020.
Right.
Or pre and post. Compare those two. Just how many eggs. I mean, we can put up dozens of eggs in one batch.
Yeah.
And if you had to buy those back, it's a big difference. And you're exactly right, Keith.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what we've been doing. We've been purchasing prep foods for quite a while that we store in my basement, and And whenever we pull something off the shelf today, I'm thinking, man, we saved a lot of money because that same thing has really went through the roof in the last couple of years, you know?
Yes,
And
yes.
so that's a good point. And I think that, people out there listening, think of it like getting a good return on your investment food wise whenever you store like that. And I did not know that you didn't need anything, that you didn't, it doesn't matter where you store it, shade, sunlight, whatever, because it's dehydrated, obviously. So
Freeze
I
dried.
always think, you're right, freeze dried. And so what I'm driving at here is that you don't have to worry about the electric going out.
Exactly. Exactly.
How many, we've had it to where we had a freezer that went out. We lost everything in that freezer. And I've seen people on Facebook and YouTube has done the exact same thing, that they've had a whole freezer full of things that have just completely ruined. They had to throw it away.
We have to.
Yes, that is a huge selling point.
We have to.
It's a huge loss.
And
Yeah.
Huge loss when you're losing like a whole hog or a half a side
yeah.
of beef.
or 2 deer and a whole bunch of
Hundreds
geese.
of thousands of dollars right there. I mean, that's
Yeah.
God forbid, but let's talk about, this tornado that just went through Valley View, Texas, that we've been heavily involved with. It's an Army buddy of mine, family down there.
Right.
They didn't have freeze-dried food. They pretty much lost everything. Even though their freezers and stuff were not turned over, they had no way to maintain it to be cool.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So
Still
it's only
don't.
going to go so long, and then it's a
3
loss.
days, they still don't.
right. You're saying, especially when it's 80 degrees, 90 degrees outside,
That same food freeze-dried, as long as it wasn't torn up in the storm, would still be good food
Okay.
until you needed it.
So if it's okay, I want to kind of take us in a little bit different direction right now.
Go ahead.
And we're going to talk about community and networking. Okay. We're in the homestead community, wonderful community. And I kind of just want to know, how has that been instrumental in the success of your freeze drying business?
Go ahead.
Well, one, it's our best
Right.
customers.
Best customers.
I can't give it the fact that it's a homesteading community being super instrumental. Had we been focusing on those long-term storageable foods, probably would have been more instrumental. But our customer base is way broader than just the homestead community. Now, granted, a lot of our events are around the homestead community.
Mm-hmm.
We got people that know where we're at. They'll come, definitely not involved with homestead community. They'll come straight into whatever kind of show it is, straight to our booth, buy what they want, and they leave. But yeah, homestead.
So any large gathering then would be very sufficient for doing the business that you're doing.
Absolutely.
But so let me ask you this: you guys have a homesteading channel,
Yes.
and there are several homesteading channels that are out there right now. So part of what I want to swerve into is why did you guys get started in the homesteading, building a homesteading channel? Was it a source of income? You wanted to be a part of the community? What kind of got you guys rolling in that aspect?
Well, it was our life. And really, the reason I wanted to do it, the YouTube, and we've got 500 and something videos out there that my kids and grandkids can look at, can see. It's a place for our lives to be recorded.
Right.
Yes, the monetary side of it is a goal and a target. We're not there, but we're close. But it's more about the family aspect and having that available down the road.
Just recording life and sharing it
Yeah.
with others, you know.
Who we are.
I mean, if we can help somebody through our experience, you know, that's all for the better.
So for those people out there who are budding, let's say YouTube or Facebook social media stars that are on the rise here, what would you say would be the best advice that you could give them to grow their channel? Because I know that like I said, there's a lot of that's in our audience. There's a lot of those people that's in y'all's audience.
Consistency and community.
Don't give up.
Don't ever quit. Keep putting out those videos. Grow your abilities as you get more into it. Learn more about it.
Right.
Just don't quit and find your niche, find your community, and get involved with those people. If they have
Right.
those YouTube meetups, if they have the lives, get on people's lives and get your name out there. That's how you do it.
Right.
Be interactive with.
So I heard Brandon Eddy. We were doing an interview with
Yep.
the Eddies, and one of the things that he mentioned was make friends.
Exactly.
Yeah, do that
And-
first. You know, make friends first.
Right.
And
Do
Yes.
you guys know Mike and Terry at MT Homestead? Are y'all aware of them?
I've seen them. I think we must follow each other. Yeah.
He calls us Framley.
Family. Okay. We can adopt that.
That's exactly.
My adopted family. Yeah.
Yep,
Yeah.
that's exactly what it's
We-
just like what Brandon's saying. Make friends. One, if you're gonna make friends, then that's people who are more likely to want to see what you're up to.
right.
Sure.
Brandon apparently, him and Stephanie has got the recipe down, so to speak, because they're not that far into YouTube more than we are, and
They're lovable.
wow,
They're lovable.
Right.
We love
Yeah, they are.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It's
good people.
them.
Mhm.
that's been, I mean, you know, this last I say, what, I don't know, bro, year, I guess now, June is the end of the month, you know, that we really kind of became aware of the homestead community and kind of started beginning to get involved. The sheer number of people we've met and got to know and contact, and now when we go places and they're there or we see they're going to be there, it's like, okay, cool, because it's almost a reunion time, you know, when you can see them all. And I was took some of your advice, and we, you know, getting on some of the live streams that other people are doing and just kind of being there and getting in. And Nick and Zoe from Chestnut, they were on
Chestnut Hills out in
Oh, yeah.
Alabama.
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I mentioned that we were I'd been on y'all's live while y'all were on the road, and when I was going back and forth between the two, and so I told them, hey, I'm back, sorry, I was just over here, and they said, yeah, we like Jack, they got the candy.
Yeah,
You know, so
yeah,
that
we're
network-
definitely known for the candy.
Yeah.
right,
The
and
candy guy and girl. Yeah.
Right. Just
Yeah.
that point of the fact that the network grows so wide through
Right.
doing that.
Now, I felt like, bringing this part of it out in the show was really important because, like I said, a lot of y'all's subscribership, a lot of our subscribership is other homesteading communities, and they're trying to grow it. And as opposed to them groping in the dark, wouldn't it be nice if we could help lift them up by just sharing our experience so far in that? So, yes, we're here to talk about freeze drying. We're talking about the Oklahoma Homestead Rendezvous, and we're definitely wanting to promote that and encourage people to get involved with that. But if you've got a homesteading channel out there, talk to people, make friends, and it'll pay dividends in the end. And,
Well, let me just say right now, before we get, I know we're running close to an hour.
Yeah.
I'm not restricted to an hour, but you guys like.
But we
So
just
let
try.
me say this: if you're in the chat right now, and you see somebody in the chat that you don't know, go check out their channel. Have y'all got mediators in here? If you got mediators, have them drop those links to those channels. Also, get in there and give these guys a thumbs up for what we're doing right now, because
Thank
that
you for
all
that.
helps the algorithm. If you're in here now, I can't see how many people's watching. Y'all probably can, but if you're in here now, go give them a thumbs up if you hadn't already.
Jack, look at me. Look at me. The algorithm is the bane of my existence, but it is what it is, right?
You're exactly right.
I don't want to live and die by it, but yeah, you're exactly right.
But if we know that, let's do that. That's part of the community I'm talking
Yeah.
about. Let's support each other. Go out, check out these channels, check out these people. If they're in here in the chat, they've got a channel, whether they're putting out videos or not. They have to have a channel to be in the chat.
Yeah.
So go support them.
Right.
Okay.
It's done. They did it.
Right.
So, Mr. Producer, go ahead and put that question up from Debbie.
Thank you.
Right.
There you go, Chris. Thanks for dropping them up.
Yep.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Chris.
We need a lot of ventilation. Yes. We have a ventilated window, fans, and a ventilated door into what we call our candy room. The way the not homesteading, but the way the cottage industry is, our business has to be in our residence.
Right.
But one way that I have on the back of the freeze dryer, there's a receptacle that your vacuum pump plugs into. The pump is what creates the heat that you need to mitigate the reason for the ventilation. Those little medical fans that you get in the hospital, those little ones, I got one clipped to every pump. And so when it calls for the pump to come on, it also calls for that fan to come on. And just, there's easy ways around the ventilation. But yeah, it'll heat a room up.
Right.
So let me put TD Rose up here.
Lift that up. It's laughing.
Yeah. TD Rose, it says, hi, y'all. I think David is convinced now on the freeze dryer. Thank you. Yay. Well, I just wanted to say to you guys, get with Jack over here, use his affiliate link. It doesn't cost you 1 cent more to go through that particular link, and just want to, do our part to, push, if you guys have a link, I don't know if y'all can drop it in or not.
Let me push that out right quick. I'm
Sure.
just going to say you can go to our channel, Dyer Family Farm, and that link is in there. Diane, you and David will not regret getting that freeze dryer. That's TD Rose that just popped up there. We know them, met them through YouTube and through the Okie Homesteading, and good people.
Yeah. Debbie Heron said, thank you all. I'm going to purchase one. And so, Debbie, I'm convinced now too. So Debbie, you weren't the only one convinced in this show that we should be doing that.
I think the only way you'll regret buying a freeze dryer is if you don't use it. You just bought it and put it in your house.
Right. There is some science to it, but don't give up on it. I mean, It's an investment. Don't get it and get frustrated. Figure it out. Just work with it. It'll work.
And don't reinvent the wheel. Get on those Facebook groups out there that's already giving you the information you need.
Right.
It's really not complicated. The oil changes are simple. That's something I can do.
This is private chat you're putting.
I know, but I'm sending it to them. I'm typing in my link.
But I would say, while we're working on that, I mean, I guess kind of, y'all keep up with the market and with the field. Is there, kind of any upcoming kind of like innovations or upcoming things in the field that are changing or getting better, or is it just sticking with the tried and true?
I thought hard about this. Now, you guys gave me the pre-questions, at least what we were going to try to stick to, and as you well know, lives have their own direction a lot of times, and we didn't get to all those questions. I don't know of any innovation I'm looking forward to that I know about. I will say there has been some innovation with the size of the trays. So you can now convert an older unit to take an extra tray, things like that.
Okay.
And depending on what you're putting in there, if you're putting candy in, that's not always beneficial.
Right.
because candy swells, but real food does not swell that way. So it is a benefit if you're doing eggs or meat, or we got pulled pork and salsa and all kinds of stuff.
Man, I'm coming to your house for dinner.
It's
Yeah.
left over from a wedding.
You got
From our son's
yeah.
wedding. It's like, we can't throw this away. It's
You
still
got a
good.
24-year window to make it here for some of that because it's only been on the shelf for a year.
That's good. I don't need that big of a window.
Right.
But bro, is there anything else? I'm going to try to go ahead and get it wrapped up. More for the audience.
Well, let's
If
just say
there's any questions that anybody has out there, feel free to reach out to us even after the fact. But before we get out of here,
we
we just want to say, a few things about, why we're doing this speaker series right now. These people that the Farm to Table is going to be doing interviews with are people that's going to be speaking at the Oklahoma Homesteading Rendezvous. Now, we want to just give you kind of a foretaste of that so that you guys know what to look forward to out there. And for all of you guys that are actually involved, especially some of the team members that's in the room with us right now, we appreciate you guys showing up, sharing it out there, getting the information out, because the way that we're successful with this is by helping each other.
Absolutely.
Let's look at it. Let's look at it from this point of view. The Farm to Table Direct Show, we have a small circle of friends. Well, Jack and Deanna, they have a small circle of friends too. And if all of these circle of friends would help each other out, well, that makes a pretty big circle. And so together we can make a difference. As a matter of fact, we've been pushing the hashtag Stronger Together. Last year it was Keep It Local, and we still say that as one of our hashtags. But we also want to say that all of us together are stronger. And right now, that's what we need as a homestead community. That's also what we need in America. That's also what we need in the world, because people, we are the solution to the problems we see going on in the world. And we appreciate you guys really, really a whole lot. Hashtag Stronger Together. And so we appreciate you guys showing up. Bro, what have we got coming up in 2 weeks on the 11th?
Well, 2 weeks on the 11th. So 2 weeks from tonight, the 11th, we are going to be talking with Stuart and Ashley from Restoration Farms. They're going to be talking about homeschooling at the rendezvous. So we're going to get into that hot button issue right there. It's a trending issue, and more people are looking that direction. And I will promise you, when you get in to sit down with Stuart and Ashley, expand your hat size, because your brain's going to grow with knowledge.
Well,
because they are something else. But that's that. We've got a schedule of speakers, and we're going to get that out pretty quick. I don't have it with me tonight, the complete list, but let's just say Red Feather Farms and several others that are on the speaker list that we're going to be having coming up over the next few months, all the way leading into the rendezvous. So right. Be on the lookout every 2 weeks, and then as we get closer, we'll have some dates where we go back to back, week to week.
By the way, bro, that is starting in July. If I can break in just a minute, we start the heavy schedule like almost every single week, starting in July, almost all the way up to the rendezvous. So we've got a fully booked out schedule, and I'm really excited to be able to interview a lot of the speakers that's there. I feel very privileged that they have allowed us to do so. And Jack, Deanna, we just thank you so much, for coming on and spending some time with us, and we cherish our what did you call that, family, our friendship with you guys, So
and I want to just take quick couple of seconds, guys. First, if you know of an event, that's coming up, if it's a gathering, whether it's a YouTubers gathering, a homesteaders gathering, shoot it out to us, get it out there in the network, because I promise you, nothing bothers me more than hearing there was an event a week ago in my backyard and I didn't know about it. So
right.
That just irritates me. But big ones coming up. Modern Homesteading Conference is this next month in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. I know that's a big one that's out west. Ozark Homesteading Expo, first weekend in September. and we're planning to be there. Urban Homestead Expo in Oklahoma City with the guys from Okie Expo. Going to be that Sunday, the 15th of September. And then, of course, the Oklahoma Homestead Rendezvous, September, I'm going to get 27th, 28th. McAllister, Oklahoma, Southeast Expo Center. Jack and Deanna will be there with us. And E&D says they have one in Iowa coming up. You up for a road trip, guys?
Yeah, that's not in your backyard.
Probably ain't. But anyway, and so shoot that over to us, E&D. Shoot that over to us, and so we can get that on the list. But anyway, so with that, folks, I mean, here we have it. We're going to wrap this up. Jack and Deanna from Dyer Family Farms. You can find them on Facebook and YouTube at Dyer Family Farms. And they have got quite a bit of stuff. And listen, if you need up-to-date weather, Jack's your guy. All right. Got the redneck weather report. But anyway, they will be at the Oklahoma Homestead Rendezvous, September 27th and 28th. And you can find out more info about the rendezvous at Oklahoma Homestead Rendezvous on Facebook, or you can contact them via email at okhomesteadrendezvous@yahoo.com. I know that Chris is still taking applications for vendors, speakers, all of that stuff, and you can reach out to her at that address, okhomesteadrendezvous@yahoo.com. Make your plans to join there. And she just chimed in with the Crockers, have a get-together in Bristow in July. So,
Chris, send me more of that information about the Crockers if you know it, please.
Yeah, absolutely. Please send that over to us, and we'll get that out. But anyway, that's kind of what's going on. We hope you found everybody listening that's still with us. Hope you found those that watched found tonight informative and fun. I know we did, enjoyed it. And as we go our separate ways, we pray that you and yours are blessed, safe, and healthy. And remember that we are stronger together. And as we always say here at the end of every show, prepare for the unexpected
and keep it local.